Hi there, it's Evelyn Alexander with Magellan College Counseling. I'm based in Los Angeles, and we have 5 counselors here in the Los Angeles area and 2 in Boston. And I'm recording this webinar about financial aid without a live audience. I did this live with an audience on the phone and online the other day, and I realized that I wasn't actually sharing some of the things on my screen that I thought I was sharing. So I'm recording this now, and hopefully I'll answer a whole bunch of questions you have about financial aid. I'm going to go through some just basic stuff. And if you hear that little snorting noise in the background, that's Chloe. She's asleep. She's my pit bull. She's one of my 2 pit bulls, and she's loud. So I'm going to try to do this in about 35 minutes, and I'm working off of a PDF document that we send out to our clients. And if you'd like to have a copy of this, all you need to do is go right here to magellancounseling.com/contact. So this is our website, Magellan College Counseling, and then if you click over here on the Contact Us button and you just send us your information, and then stick a little note in the comment box down here that says, please send me the financial aid packet, I will be happy to ship that off to you right away. Okay, so let's get going. And I'm just going to go through some really basic terms first. So it's important to just sort of know the language that everyone uses in college financial aid. So I'll give you some acronyms now, and then I'll go through as we get into this, and hopefully you'll understand a little bit better what I'm talking about. So the most important thing to know at the very beginning is that there are 2 totally separate types of aid that colleges give: need-based and merit-based. Need-based is based on the parent's income and assets, and to a certain extent the student's income and assets. And merit-based generally does not look at your income or your assets. It looks at the student's grades and test scores, and sometimes essays that they require. Okay, so the total cost of attendance is different than just tuition. So let's see, I think I can go deeper into this. So here's a little chart that we made, and these are all numbers from the college's websites. But when we talk about total cost of attendance, that takes all of these things into account: tuition, room and board, travel expenses, books, miscellaneous expenses. Sometimes people get a little bit hung up on this travel number, and I want you to realize, even if we're talking about you sending your child to a school all the way across the country, it's unlikely that you are going to pack up your entire family of 8 and run across the country to visit junior in college, 6 times during the school year. So a lot of times travel ends up being, people get hung up on that number. Honestly, it could be a few $100s. It could be $1,000. A round trip ticket from LA to Boston is $300 or $400. So I don't want you to get hung up on that travel if we're looking at sending your child far away from home. But the cost of attendance is the important number that we're looking at. And obviously that number is going to be different based on meal plans. Right, you can see a little bit of variation here in the room and board. Obviously, it's going to be tremendously different based on the tuition, and sometimes it'll be different based on in-state and out-of-state. And keep in mind that only public universities have in-state and out-of-state prices. Private universities have one price for everyone. Okay, so now you know cost of attendance. The FAFSA, I'm going to talk a lot about that in a moment, is the free application for federal student aid. It is the starting point for need-based financial aid. Every college that offers need-based aid will require you to submit a FAFSA. The expected family contribution, this is where a little bit of the angst and anxiety starts coming in. So the expected family contribution is a number that the government comes up with using a formula. Again, this is all in the packet that I'm happy to send you, to determine, again, based on your income and assets, what you can afford to pay for college. So the bad news is no one is ever going to knock on your door and ask you, hey, how much do you think you can afford to spend every year to send your son or daughter to college? They're not going to ask you. They're going to determine that based on the information that you input into the FAFSA. Okay, so now that we know sort of the basic terms, this is where we start to realize the variation in what colleges will offer. So this is the most important formula that you need to know. the total cost of attendance for each college, remember that number is going to be different for different colleges, minus your expected family contribution is your need. So you can understand now that your need may look different at different schools. Again, so going back to my little chart here, let's just say you live in California and your EFC comes up, let's just say $40,000. If you're a middle-class family, it wouldn't be unthinkable for your EFC to come up between $35,000 and $40,000. If your student is admitted to UCLA or one of the UCs, and most of the UCs, the in-state cost of attendance, total cost is going to come up, $32,000, $33,000, $34,000. If your EFC is $35,000 or $40,000, you have no need at UCLA or at one of the UCs. Your need is zero because your EFC exceeds the cost of attendance. So in other words, they expect you to pay for 100% of their costs, every year. However, if we're talking about a private out-of-state university, and I'll give you a little bit more on why I pick on Johns Hopkins later, like Tulane or Hopkins, if your EFC is 40 and their cost of attendance is hovering around 70, you have need. Your need is about $30,000. So this is where we start seeing variations in how colleges respond to that need. Okay, so I'm trying to travel through this process in as linear a fashion as I can, but these terms are really important for you to know. Just going back to the FAFSA, and you can see I'm toggling between two presentations here. Let's go back to the FAFSA. So if you're the parent of a class of 2018 students, so your student will graduate from high school in May or June of 2018, he or she is going to start his or her senior year in the fall of 2017. And that's the fall that he or she will be submitting college applications. The FAFSA is parallel, time-wise, to the college application process now. It didn't used to be. It used to not open until January, but starting last year, they now open it October 1st. So starting October 1st of your student's senior year, you will be allowed to open an account in the FAFSA. And the first step in that is obtaining a federal student aid ID number. Let's see. And all of the links, by the way, in this document are clickable. So I'm going to click here. And let's go in, and you can see I have 8 million tabs open. You can go in and get a federal student aid ID number anytime. But what you can't do if you have a class of 2018 student who has not started their senior year yet, you can't actually go into the FAFSA. Now, I will tell you, remember that the FAFSA is always open because it's open for the class before you, right? So we could go on the FAFSA website right now. I'm not going to do it, but it's not available for you. In other words, the account that you would open if you tried to do it early, you're going to end up having to input it all again after October 1st. So some things we want you to do early, some things you can't do early. You can get a federal student aid ID number, and again, this whole process is run by the federal government, by the office, the U.S. Department of Education. Okay, so I'm gonna move this guy over here. Okay, I'm gonna close out of this tab. I have the problem of way too many tabs open. Okay, so you can get your ID number here. Starting October 1st of your child's senior year, you can go into the FAFSA, and again, this link will take you to the FAFSA website. I do also link to this ridiculously large instruction manual for filling out the FAFSA. Imagine a government instruction manual. That's exactly what it looks like. It's like 64 pages. The truth is, I don't think you need the 64-page instruction manual to fill out a 6-page document. So I give you a link to the paper version of the FAFSA. Now you can see this is the 2016-17 FAFSA, so this is old. But it doesn't change very much year to year, and we very strongly encourage parents to go through and practice. Honestly, this whole FAFSA process, everyone is a little bit alarmed and nervous about, oh my gosh, what are the right answers? We actually encourage you to practice before you get started. Okay, the other thing we encourage you to do, and you can do this anytime, is start taking steps to figure out what your EFC might be. Again, remember, EFC, expected family contribution, And there's this great website. I'm not going to click here because I have it open. It's actually on the College Board's website. And if you just Google, you can click on the link in this presentation, or if you just Google College Board EFC calculator, this is what's going to come up. This page right here. Can you hear Chloe snoring in the background? Oh my gosh, there she is. So here's what I want you to do. I'm not going to go through this whole process right now, but I want to go just a few pages in until I get to the next point that I want to explain. So again, if you Google College Board EFC calculator, here's where you'll start. So we're going to click on the Start button. Okay, so the first thing it's going to ask you is what kind of student we're talking about. Most students who are high school seniors applying to college directly out of high school, the answer to all these questions is going to be no. So I'm going to leave all these no, and I'm going to hit next. And this is where the next point I want to explain is. So there's two formulas that help colleges and the government determine your EFC. The FAFSA methodology is called the federal methodology, FM. And this is what colleges who only use FAFSA, this is all the information they want, it's all in FAFSA, that's called the federal methodology. However, there are some schools, mostly private, although there are a few public institutions that require it, that require an additional document that is operated by the College Board. It's called the CSS profile. It's a lot nosier than the FAFSA, just to warn you. Basically what it's attempting to do is really dig a little bit deeper and determine how much you actually need financial aid to help you pay for college. That's called the institutional methodology. Now, they are so helpful in giving this link right here because I have a link here in our PDF that says, let's see, there's a list of schools that require this CSS profile. And unfortunately, when I clicked on it, and I bet that this will be true here too, when you click here, it makes you sign in. Oh, look at that, it doesn't make you sign in. Okay, fabulous. So I'm actually gonna take a PDF of this and save it, because when I tried to click on the link yesterday, it wanted me to sign in through College Board. So here is a list of every single college that requires the CSS profile. You can see it's not humongous. It's probably, I think last time we counted it was like 180 schools, maybe 200 schools, but it is a lot of schools that you know. And you can see there are some public universities on here. But it's just good to know what you're getting into, as always. So if your child is applying to any of the schools on this list, you need to know that you will have to fill out the CSS profile. Okay, it's good to know that that's here. So anyway, the point of digging into this EFC calculator this far was that when it gets to the point of asking you which formula you want it to use, you should select both. And what's going to happen, now I'm not going to hit next at this point, it's going to take you through the rest of this little calculator, and when it gets to results, it's actually going to give you two different numbers. It's going to give you an FM EFC, I'm so sorry for the acronyms, a federal methodology EFC, and an IM, institutional methodology EFC. And so what that means is your EFC for UCLA might be $35,000, but for Tulane it might be $45,000 because Tulane is going to see different information than, now I want to see if Tulane is on this list, and I don't know if it is. Let's see. Tulane, are you here? Yeah, they require it. So this is a really good example. Your EFC for Tulane could be different than your EFC for UCLA. But again, always remember, let's go back to this formula, right? The formula is the cost of attendance minus your EFC, whichever one it is your need. So now I'm going to talk for a moment about, oh, you know what, people, I'm just reading what I've got in this document. And again, I'm happy to send out this document to anyone who wants it. Just send us your information through our contact page. So the first time you fill out the FAFSA is when your student is applying to college, and so they'll be a senior in high school. You will fill out a FAFSA and send it to every college that your student applies to. Obviously, once they select which college they're going to attend, you're only going to send it to one school for the successive years. But you do have to fill out a FAFSA every year your student is in college and you're interested in getting financial aid. So, okay, so now what we get to is this question about how this gap is going to be filled. And I'm going to show you a couple great ways to figure out who fills the gap and who doesn't. I will tell you that, well, we'll get to that later. It's about merit aid. We'll get to that later. Okay, so this question of how much of the gap did they fill is a really big question. So let's go to, so I'm on the main Big Future College Board website. This is just their home page for what they call college search. That's all I did right here is click on college search. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for individual colleges, and I'm going to show you how to find out how generous colleges are. And the reason that it's important for you to know this is colleges are large bureaucratic organizations that don't change regularly, and they don't change quickly. And so the truth is the track record that a college has about giving need-based aid and merit-based aid is a very, very strong predictor of how they will behave towards your students. Okay, so I'm going to type in Johns Hopkins University, and now I'm going to tell you why I pick on Hopkins. I am an alum of Johns Hopkins, and I believe that gives me a lifelong right to pick on them. But there's information, so you can see I searched for Hopkins, and now I'm going to click on it here. There's a reason that I pick on it, because there are you know how data can tell you different things, statistics can lie. What it shows about Hopkins is a really good example of that. So when you go on the college's information page within Big Future, again, we're inside the College Board here, I'm going to click on the paying tab over here, and it's going to give you some basic information, kind of just like this chart that we came up with before. And again, the number's not too far different. I think my transportation expenses on my chart are a little higher. And now I'm going to go up to the top, and I'm going to look at financial aid by the numbers. And what this tells us is it's going to tell us a little bit about how much of the gap, how much of that need they fill. And you can see that Hopkins is really good about filling need, right? And this pie chart tells you how they fill it. So 20% of it is going to be loans or work study. That's what they mean by jobs here. And over 80% of it is going to be scholarships and grants. So what I want you to learn how to do is triangulate between this page, the Big Future site, and this website, which is called College Data. This has really great information about the way colleges respond to students who have financial need. So I just typed in Johns Hopkins in the search bar at the top, and when Hopkins comes up, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hover my mouse over the name, and what comes up are the different categories of information that they have. And I'm going to click on Money Matters. That's where all the good financial information is. So when Money Matters comes up, again, it's going to give you information about the total cost, how much tuition, room and board, all that good stuff. It will take you directly to the financial aid office, which is great information to have. But what I'm going to do is scroll down to where it says profile of 2015-16 financial aid. So this is already a year behind, which is fine. And you can see that 65-66% of their freshman class applied for financial aid, and 80% of that 66% were found to have need, but 100% of applicants with need were given some financial aid, and almost all of them, their need was fully met. And the average award, $41,000. That's a nice average. I will say to you that the first, and now we can kind of go back to our little pie chart here, the first about $5,500 for most colleges will be filled with loans. So they'll offer you Stafford loans, they'll offer you work study, and the work study could come up to anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 per year, and that would be where your student has an on-campus job, and the money that they earn would go back directly to pay for their tuition. So, and that's why this number looks like this. Most colleges, will offer loans. There are a very small number of colleges that do not offer loans at all. They give you all money that you don't have to pay back. Many colleges will offer Parent Plus loans, which are not the best deal that you're ever going to see. And so a lot of parents, if they are put in a position of being offered a Parent Plus loan, they would rather finance it out of cash they have on hand. This would be something that you would talk to your financial advisor about, as far as your cash flow and how much you're saving and your retirement and all that good stuff. But the loans that your students will get, again, the first amount of money they're gonna offer you is likely to be student loans in your student's name that your student has to pay back, and it will impact their credit rating. Okay, so that's the loan story. So now the reason that I triangulate between these two screens is I want you to see the difference between need-based aid, which they call scholarships and grants, and non-need-based aid, which is what we call merit aid. So here, the College Board site tells you that the average need-based scholarship or grant award is almost $36,000, which we could also see here on college data. It says it's about $41,000, so we're close. The numbers are close. But it also tells you that the average merit-based gift is $30,000. That sounds fabulous, doesn't it? But what it doesn't tell us, what this site doesn't tell us, is this very important piece of information. So now, again, under Profile of Financial Aid, I'm down here under Merit-Based Gift, because what I'm looking for is for families who don't have need, who are not judged to have need, which means your EFC is high. It could be higher than $70,000. We've definitely had clients in that position, which is frustrating because you aren't going to feel like you could write someone a check for $70,000, and yet the government formula thinks that you can. So here's what we see when we look at the merit-based gift. A third of their aid recipients get merit aid. That's not surprising to me. But freshmen with no financial need who received merit aid, there's 17 of them out of a class, and it's 1.3% of their freshman class. This is the number that makes me want to say to you, this is why you need to look at this in advance. Because if you are expecting that your superstar student with top grades and top scores is definitely going to get money from a top-tier school like Hopkins, this number should help you realize that that's not the case. And I don't want you to be disappointed when they don't give you money, but being in the top 1.3% of the admitted student pool at this kind of school is extraordinarily hard and entirely unpredictable. So now I'm going to go back to my document here, our financial aid packet, and I'm going to run down to, there's a whole bunch of good reading to do here, and that's why we included all this stuff in the packet. But what I want you to do is, when you get to page 15, and there's Chloe snoring. Oh my goodness. All right. Okay, when you get to page 15, this is a list by Lynn O'Shaughnessy, and I highly recommend that you check out her blog, thecollegesolution.com. She's very straightforward and very, very knowledgeable about this whole universe of merit aid. She compiled a list of schools that don't provide merit scholarships, 0. And the reality is you've heard of every single school on this list, and what you'll notice is Johns Hopkins is not on this list. Why? Because they do provide merit scholarships, but literally only to 17 kids out of a class of 1,350. So in reality, if a school is not on this list of 23 colleges, they do provide merit aid. But what I'm hoping you'll do is get comfortable using this website, College Data, so that you can see how generous they really are. Again, for us as advisors and counselors, it's really all about helping you bring your expectations into what's really going on in the world of college financial aid and scholarships. So, okay, so So that's what I use college data for. I'm going to back up in my document here to, let's see, Lynn has a 3-page, she calls it a primer, right, on the EFC, and this is really great information. So we have it in here. It starts on page 8. She goes through a couple examples, and it's just really good information to have. So I'm going to back up. The first 2 pages are not flyers; they're just from us. It's just kind of the narrative from us. And so, so here's where we are again. Not all colleges are going to fill 100% of that need, and whatever isn't filled, they're expecting you to pay. So again, it's important for you to know what percentage of need a school meets. So here, I'm going to change schools and I'm going to look up Tulane so you can understand why I use these 2 schools as an example. All right. And here's Tulane, and I'm not going to look it up on the College Board website because for our purposes, college data is actually what I'm looking for as far as showing you, again, percentage of the admitted class that receives merit aid. And again, not on the need-based side, not every school is going to fill 100%. So it's important for you to know, if you have a gap of $20,000 at a school that only fills 60% of it, that's what, $12,000. They're going to find a way to fill $12,000. $5,500 of that is going to be loans. $2,500 is going to be student work study. So basically, the first $8,000 of that $12,000 is either money you have to pay back or work study. They may give you a small grant, but there's another $8,000 of that gap of your need that they're not going to cover. I'm just picking numbers out of the air here. So again, percentage of need met is really important. Okay, so here's Tulane. Again, cost of attendance, upwards of almost $68,000. So I'm scrolling down to the profile of aid. They do meet a very high percentage of need for families that have need, but look at this on the merit side. For students who have no financial need, and again, I'm looking at this from the perspective of a middle-class family who may come up with a very high EFC, they're still getting money, top 32% of their pool, including students who have no need. So again, going back to this chart here on this one, Tulane is going to end up costing you significantly less if you're high enough in the pool. And again, this is where being very aware of where your grades and test scores are in the pool of admitted students, and every college has that. They'll give you an admitted student profile, and you need to figure out where your student is, grades and test scores, in the admitted student pool. If you're at the top, for Tulane, if you're in the top third, it's very likely that you're going to be offered money. We actually worked with 5 students this year who were offered very, very generous scholarships, upwards of $30,000. And look what that does. If Tulane costs $70,000 and you get a $30,000 scholarship, you're almost in line with what an in-state public university costs. Right? So that's why we tell people don't worry about the sticker price. Really, what you should worry about is how generous the college is. That's more important than the sticker price. And as you can see from the list of colleges that don't provide merit aid and what we've seen about Hopkins, and it would be true with any other top tier school as well, the cost is likely to be what you're going to pay for this education. In fact, Lynn O'Shaughnessy has an article here about choosing between a brand name school and a low cost public. I would actually say a less brand name school that could be private that offers merit aid. And you know what I'll do? I'll put this link on our Facebook page so that you all have access to it. Okay, so again, focusing on what percentage of the gap colleges fill on the need-based side and how generous they are. Now, I also want to make a point, and I've got this chart in the packet that we send out. I want to make a point about big scholarships that are out there to help kids pay for college. Every year, you always hear billions of dollars have gone unclaimed, that could be helping kids pay for their college education. Here's the reality. Okay, let's get rid of some of these pie pieces, right? This whole huge orange chunk here is loans, so get rid of that. We're not talking about that. This is tax credits. This is state grants. State grants are for families, living at the poverty level. So get rid of these three chunks right now. Work study, we've talked about. Pell grants are federal grants for families living at the poverty level, so get rid of this chunk. Federal grant programs other than Pell, also for poor students. So now what's left is this chunk right here, which looks to be about, 20% of the pie, and this chunk right here, which is a quarter of what this is, right? This is private employer grants, and it's $11 billion, and this is institutional grant, and it's $42 billion. So private employer grants it really means private and employer grants. That's those big scholarships that you hear about, like GE has a $10,000 scholarship they give out every year. Coca-Cola, AXA Advisors, a whole bunch of organizations give out one-time large scholarships. But institutional grants make up 4 times as much money as these private grants. And so what this really means is if you pick the right schools that are generous, you're going to end up in a better financial situation than if you cross your fingers and hope for one of those big one-time, I would emphasize, scholarships. Institutional grants are money that is given directly from the colleges, and it's renewable. The word that you want to look for is renewable. Every year you get that money as long as you keep a certain GPA. That's how most college scholarships and grants work. And so the truth is, what we tell our clients is there's money in the list. There's magic in the list. That's where you are either going to find, from a fit perspective, applying to the right list of schools is everything in what we do. You obviously want to find the schools that really feel like they fit for you. You don't necessarily want to just apply to the schools where, quote unquote, everyone's applying or where my friends are applying. But as far as financial aid is concerned, if you can find a Tulane or a school that offers you, and there's tons of them, offers you $10, $20, $30, $40,000 scholarships, you will bring the cost down. I have a student who I worked with this year, a class of 2017, and she's attending a small liberal arts college in Texas. And when the acceptance letter and the scholarship offer came, she forwarded the email to me, and her dad called me and said, "Is this a joke?" It was $27,000. It will make the cost of that private liberal arts college just about equitable to what he would be paying for her to go to an in-state University of California school. So we really emphasize that, again, it's really about what the colleges offer, and don't focus on the sticker price. And again, use college data because the college's track record is really everything. I think I've covered kind of most of the things that I wanted to. Again, FAFSA is really the most important gateway. It opens October 1st. Here's what FAFSA considers. Some colleges also want that CSS profile. Here's where you can check out what your EFC might be, and you can play around with income levels and stuff like that and see how it changes. Here's the formula. Total cost of attendance minus your EFC is your need. Let's see who gets merit aid. I think I covered everything I wanted to cover. When I did the live version of this webinar, a couple people asked about Naviance. So if you have if your student is at a school that uses Naviance, there may or may not be financial aid information embedded in Naviance. It will, however, give you every college's, it'll either give the average SAT or ACT score, or it might give the range of the middle 50%. So most colleges report the middle 50% SAT scores, and what that means is 25% of the admitted class got lower than that range, and 25% got higher. So being within that range, A, doesn't get you in, and B, it doesn't necessarily get you money, depending on how much of the class they give scholarships merit aid to. So this would be where, again, you triangulate between what you see either in Naviance or on the college's website that tells you about their middle 50%. And also, again, I would use college data to research, who gets that money. Oh, there's one other website I wanted to direct you to. If you have kids who are a little bit younger, the College Board also has this awesome college cost calculator where you can actually see what college is going to cost when your student, like let's say you have a kid who's in 4th grade right now, so they're not going to college for 8 years, right? And so let's say I want to figure out what the average of a private 4-year private university is going to be in 8 years, and I'm inflating it at 4% a year because that's kind of how it's been going. So 8 years until college. So here, total cost for college in 8 years for your 4th grader is going to be $245,000. If we're looking at a 4-year private university with an average cost of $40,000. Now, as we've seen, that the average costs are a little bit higher than that. So you can actually put in your own cost if you want to even scare yourself even more. So let's put in $68,000 and see how scary it's going to be. Now, I'm also saying I want to cover 35% of the cost from my savings. So here, this is really what I think a private university will cost if you have a 4th grader. It's going to be just shy of $400,000. So anyway, if you have friends who have kids a little bit younger, again, Google is my friend, College Board, College Cost Calculator. I think this is a great tool. And college data is truly my best friend. This is all information that the colleges report directly to the federal government. So I trust it and I believe it and I use it religiously. And I hope this has helped. And if you have any more questions, that's my email address and that's my cell phone number. We'd also love for you to like our Facebook page. If you look up Magellan Counseling on Facebook, we post lots of articles and lots of tidbits, and we tweet every now and then as well. So I hope this has been helpful, and good luck.